All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special session. This is all about connecting Snowflake Cortex Analyst with Copilot Studio. Today, I'm joined by Maciej Jarka. Maciej, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Maciek. I am Snowflake architect and a Snowflake SME, working as an independent consultant for many smaller and bigger companies. Yep, go ahead, Ravsen.
Awesome. Thanks, Maciej. And we really appreciate that you are here today. So, we've been actually doing some work around this. The main reason that we decided to have a video about this because we didn't see enough material or user guide. So we decided that let's tackle this problem because large organizations they use Snowflake mainly. As a data house, data lake, data warehouse, and they store their main transactional data. So end users they need this information basically to get their customer or product insights. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and talk more about what this about. So agenda, we will basically start with introduction, what's this about, and we will show you the end result. And then Maciej will talk about Snowflake Cortex agent, then what are the business values of these agents, as well as cost and security considerations. And then we start with the demo. And demo will have mainly three parts here. I will start creating some Azure resources. Then Maciej grab those information and use that with them within Snowflake, and then I will start building Copilot Studio agent and connecting to Snowflake to pull data. And then once it's done, I will basically publish it to Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot, and then end users can use it from there. And after that, we will also explain you some of the issues that we encountered along the way, and we will show you how you can troubleshoot them. Okay, I'm super excited. Let's go ahead and start. All right, use case here is basically, as I said, large organizations, they use Snowflake to store their customer data, product data, revenue, etc. The challenge here is how users can use that data without the need of going to data analysts or other teams to create data insights. It takes a lot of time, and the solution that we are proposing here, bringing those data from Snowflake using Cortex Analyst by connecting Copilot Studio agents. And the benefits here is huge because in this case, users, they don't need to learn how to write SQL queries. They get data within the teams because everyone uses the team. And then basically your data is safe. That's one of the main considerations that why we are using this, because you don't get access to data that you don't have access. So basically Cortex Analyst will look at your access permissions and then provide data that you are supposed to have access to. All right, so let's go ahead, and Maciej, do you want to talk about the benefits? Okay.
First of all, I would like to talk and explain what's the Cortex Analyst about. So if I would have to explain it quickly, it's like a holy grail of the self-service BI, because that's a tool that allows you to talk to your structured data without knowing SQL and without technical skills. And initially, as the SQL professional, I was very skeptic about that, because the advantage of the SQL language over the natural language is that it's very precise. It cannot be interpreted in the multiple ways by the SQL interpreter, which we cannot say about the natural language. And now, if you consider that such interface can be hallucinating and may give you invalid results and not the exact answers you're looking for, then it's quite risky to make business decisions on top of such results. But here, Cortex Analyst comes with a very good solution. It's not only the interface that translates natural language to SQL, but it takes advantage of what's the semantic model. And semantic model gives you a better control on how the queries are being generated. So I will show you an example how to create simple Cortex Analyst project in Snowflake and give you a couple of examples of the simple prompts. So when we create a new semantic model, we select the database and the schema where our data resides, and we give a name uh, of our model. So I will call it products V3. I have to select the tables that I want to talk to. So I have this in the Copilot DB stats schema, and then these are products revenue. This is the table that we will use for today's example. It basically contains a couple of artificial financial products along with revenue in the certain markets. The data model is very simple. It has just 4 columns: product name, market name, year, and the revenue. So here I select the columns that I want to use in the model. Now, I create this semantic model, and from this point of time, I can already use that. So I can enter the prompt when I say, what are product names? So it should translate this to the SQL that we see, which is another benefit because we have a kind of control over what has been generated, and it gives us instant results. And we haven't done any modification to the semantic layer yet. And now I would like to show you an example why the semantic layer matters. Let's say in our company, we have a categorization for tier 1 products. So these are the products that have the biggest revenue, and we just call them tier 1. But this information is not stored anywhere in the database. It's just a kind of tribal knowledge. So when I ask Cortex Analyst now, what is revenue of tier 1 products, it will probably, it says, I apologize, but I need more information. Because by the data that we have in the table, it has no clue what is tier 1. But in the semantic model, what can we do is we can add a named filter where we say revenue bigger than 5 million, and we can call it tier 1 products, and add the description tier 1 products, and we can add this. Now, with this filter, let's ask the same question again. What are tier?
That's
Now,
awesome. That's awesome.
yep, it finds the interpretation. Now it knows that the tier 1 is below 5, it's above 5 million, and it creates a proper query. Now, the possibilities of the semantic model are very huge. And by that, you can really, putting some effort into that, we can adjust this so our non-technical users, also including C-level, can easily use that, but at the same time, we have control on how the queries are generated. And we have means to avoid hallucinations and generating invalid results. So that's really a good balance in between automated solution and something that we need to put some effort in. And today we will show how to integrate this tool in with Microsoft Copilot Studio and Microsoft Teams.
So let's go to high-level design. Matej, would you like also talk about this?
Yes, so today we are focusing on the Cortex Analyst, so the top one of this diagram. This diagram shows also the Cortex search at the bottom, which is more for the unstructured data, and we will show that in our next movie. For today, our main topic are the structured data and the Cortex Analyst. And in the picture, we also have the Cortex agent. That's a lot of new terms, but the Cortex agent is basically a tool that allows you to generate responses. And when the when we use both Cortex Analyst and the Cortex Search, it allows to blend the answers to your prompts from two types of data, from the structured and the unstructured. But for today, our Cortex agent will be connected only to the Cortex Analyst to generate the answers to the prompts that we send from Copilot Studio and from other Microsoft tools.
Awesome. So that's been said. I will actually show how that works. So I'm going to share my another screen. Awesome. So we are in the Microsoft Teams. As you can see, I already have some answers. Basically, user can ask, uh, I ask one question, what are the top selling products in 2023? And it says, I have checked for the top selling products by revenue in 2023, but there is no available data to provide a list or summary at this time because we're not pulling, we don't have data for 2023. So, but when I ask for 2025, it's just pull this information from Snowflake, the name of the product and their revenue. So if you look at now in Copilot Studio, what we see, this is just a simple agent in the before production. I would suggest adding more description and instructions, but instructions here is very format, very I would say simple. Please return all outputs in a human readable text format. Avoid returning raw JSON or nested data structures unless explicitly requested, and basically giving some example what are the end results that Copilot is supposed to generate. And within this agent, I don't have any knowledge. I don't need it. If you want, you can add it. I turned off searches, but I have only one tool. This is Agentic Flow. And I created one topic. If they called use Cortex agent. So this agent triggered when the user says, for example, I need product information or Cortex agent, etc. And the agent asks basically, I can help you with Cortex Analyst, and I'm also providing some starter prompts, and I'm using entity pre-built entity here called user's entire response, and put this inside a variable because later we will use that. And then within this topic, we also created a just Cloudflow. And if you look at the details, let me open this. So within this flow, when an agent calls the flow, I just have one input. And then I'm using action called submit SQL statement for execution. And we have some data from Snowflake. By the way, if you see a mask in certain areas in this video, because of security and privacy reasons, I'm using GitHub mask to hide those details. In the real world scenario, you will need those information, but I will share where you can bring that information. So we have database, we have schema, warehouse, role, these coming from Snowflake. And if you look at change connection, I have connected to Snowflake. And in your case, actually today we will add a new connection with the Azure resources and Snowflake data. And then I am returning these outputs to Copilot Studio Agent. Again, this is another output, and here is I'm using actually a built-in outputs the outputs of the submit SQL statement with body data. So in a nutshell, this is how it works. And before actually I start with Azure, I'm gonna show you the resources that you need. Okay, so for these development, you will need Microsoft Entra ID. You will need to have Snowflake account. You will need to have Copilot Studio account. And if you want to deploy your solution to Microsoft Teams, M365 Copilot, or SharePoint, in that case, you will need to have Microsoft 365 account. So other than that, this is basically, this is gonna be a little long video, but this is a production ready video. By following this tutorial, you will be able to create your Azure resources, connect to Snowflake, develop your Copilot Studio agent, and publish it to Teams so that your users can use it. Awesome. So I think now time that I can go ahead and start. So first thing you need to go ahead, open Azure portal, and from here we will need to go to app registration to create some resources, because we need to first create a new app identity to represent Snowflake as a trusted service in our organization. So under Azure services, you will see app registrations. If you don't see it here, so you can just type app registration. All right, these are the active registrations I have, and I will go ahead and click new registration. And I will call this Snowflake OAuth resources. I've created multiple resources, and this time I'm just add my cat's name here to differentiate. And also make sure you keep this as is, which it says accounts in the organizational directory only, Microsoft only, single tenant. So you are saying that only people from this single tenant can access to this resource. And from here, click register. Awesome. So once you register, you will have this information, and then we need to go to expose an API. And from here, we need to basically use this app as an API. So click add, and I will grab this information. By the way, I would recommend having a text file, because you will need these information, that basically resource URI, app URI, client ID, client secret, secret ID, and some of additional information, entity ID, tenant ID, sub ID. So that I will provide this information to Mathieu, and he will take care of this information from Snowflake side. So I basically add it and click save. Go ahead and open manifest. So we need to assign a role for Snowflake. So from here, it's just a basic JSON. So look for app roles. And I will paste the JSON role for you in the video description, but you will be able to find that in the official documentation as well. So I will just copy this, and right between these brackets, I will paste this. So basically, as you can see, this is gonna be role analyst. So we need to make sure that we assign proper role. In production, I would avoid using additional roles like account admin, etc. That's very risky. But analyst role is good enough for this demo.
Yeah,
And from
exactly.
here,
And if I
yeah,
can extend here something, there is the value of the role is session colon role colon analyst, and the analyst is the role name. So after that, we will be creating the role in Snowflake. So in that case, the role name should be just analyst uh, without the prefix. And this is one of the issues we faced during building this solution, because we given a different name and it was very difficult to determine what's really wrong. So just remember about that when configuring Entra with Snowflake.
awesome. Thanks, Malti. And then once you are done, click save. So we registered just one app. Now we need to register our client app. That's basically gonna be Copilot Studio Agent using this resource to connect Snowflake. So I will go ahead and click App Registrations, and I will click New Registration. This time, I will call this Snowflake OAuth client. Again, I will add a different name. You can rename it in a way that you want, but it should make sense for you. And same thing, please make sure that you keep this within like as is accounts in this organizational directory only. And once you are done, click register. So once you create this, we need to create a certificates. Basically, this is gonna be password that app will use to prove its identity. So click certificates and secrets and click new client secret. So description, I will just you can add more description, but for this demo, I will just say to connect to Snowflake Cortex agents and expires for this demo. I think just 3 months is good enough, but for production you need to align with your organizational policy, and I will click add. So we will need to copy the value right away, because if you don't, you will probably lose it. Perfect. And then from here, I will also copy the secret ID. Perfect. So now that we have secret, we will need to go to API permissions. And from here, click add a permission. Look for APIs my organization uses and type the resource that you created. This is Snowflake OAuth resources. Basically, you are giving permission for this role. And from here, click application permissions and select analyst role and click add permissions. And the next step will be, as an admin, you will need to grant admin consent for this. Just click grant admin consent and click yes. Perfect. Now you can see this screen. And the next step here will be we will need to get Azure endpoints. So from here, you can click overview and click endpoints. So we will need to get some information from here. Look for OAuth 2.0 token endpoint. I will just copy this information and paste it in my text file. You probably don't see that information, but as I said, you will need this information. The other information you will need gonna be federation metadata document. Copy that information. And you will also need to have OpenID Connect metadata document, and copy this information and paste in your text file. All right, so from here, what we will need to, we have already copied and pasted this information, but let's go ahead and take this OpenID Connect metadata document and then paste this information here. And from here, look for JSON Web Key Services URI. If you can't find this, you can just type Control F and then type the initial letters, and then you will see. So we need to grab this value. I will just take this and paste on my text file. We will also need to grab other information, which is Federation metadata document. I'll just paste it here, copy. And from here, we are looking for entity ID. So you can just again copy the value and paste it into your notes. Perfect. So then we will come back to Azure and then click expose API and click add a URL. We actually mainly done with Snowflake, Azure resources. So what we need one more step, which is grabbing the sub information. You will be able to grab that information using this website, and Matej will show it how you can get it. I'm gonna share my resources with you, Matej.
Thank you. All right, so I have received all the parameters collected by Rafsan from the Azure portal, and I will continue configuring Snowflake to allow Entra ID to connect. The very first thing I need to get is the value of sub, because the value of sub is it will become our OAuth username in Snowflake. So for this purpose, you will need to execute the curl script from your command line, and you will need to provide a couple of parameters. The first parameter is the client ID. The second parameter is the client's secret. I received all these parameters from Rafsan. And the last parameter is the URI ID. So you need to paste all of these elements to the curl script and execute that. Let me run it. And if all these values has been provided correctly, the API returns us the value of token. Now I'm copying this entire token, and I go to web browser. I go to jwt.ms to parse the token. I paste it here, and it returns me a couple of attributes extracted from the token. I am looking specifically for the sub. Okay, this is my sub. I copy that, and I go to Snowflake. So here in Snowflake, I will be working with account admin to configure users and security integrations. Let me enlarge this a little bit. All right. So I will start with creating the user. Remember, we have extracted the value of sub. This is the value. Now, I have to execute create user statement. I can name the user whatever I want, that this will be just the Snowflake internal name. But the important part here is that the value extracted from the sub must go here as the login name. And this will be visible in the logs as the login name of that user. And I create that. Okay, this user already exists, but this is the way to create it. And the next step, when the user with this login name is ready, is creation of the security integration. I have a template here, and this time I need three parameters: AD issuer, JWKS endpoint, and API URI. I have all of these parameters from Rafsan, so let me just copy them and use. So for the Azure AD issuer, I'm using this entity ID. For the JWKS endpoint, I'm using JWKS URI. And for the API URI, I have to take API URI for the resource that was extracted by Rafsan. All right, so these are all the parameters needed for my security integration. I know I just have the same issuer created already in the Snowflake account. So for the purpose of this video, I will slightly change the value of the issuer to let it be created. So it has been created. And now what we need to do when we have the user, we have the security integration created, we need to assign all the roles that are needed for this user to execute our Cortex agent. So I have the role called analyst. You remember, we have to name the role the same way as it was in the manifest. And we need to grant this role to the user that we will use for this demo. I'm sorry, it's this one. Oops. So it's Copilot OAuth user. Okay. We can set the default role to the analyst. This is not mandatory step, because when connecting from Copilot Studio, we will specify the role anyway. And now we need to grant some privileges to the role analyst to be able to use Cortex agent. So I will start with the data, because usage of the Cortex analyst requires access to the underlying tables. I have the table in the database called Copilot DB, then stats, then tables, and the table is called products revenue. And this is the data that we have in that table. So what I need to do is grant usage on the underlying database to the role that I will be using, grant usage on the schema where the table resides, and grant access to the table that will be used by the Cortex analyst to generate the responses. Now, this is very important, because we have to understand that this is a very secure environment. It's not that when you connect to the Snowflake analyst, you will be able to query all the data available. It's under the same role-based access control that any other query goes. So the same way, we need to configure the required privileges. Another privilege that we need to grant is access to the stage. Now, when we create the semantic model, as I have shown at the beginning, it's a YAML file, and that YAML file is being stored on a certain stage. So we need to have the stage to be created and the privileges on this stage granted to the role analyst. So that with these privileges, the role is almost ready. The last one that we need is the database role called Snowflake Cortex users. This is a built-in database role in Snowflake that allows to use Cortex Analyst in general. So I'm granting this database role to our role analyst. From the privilege perspective, this is all we need. We already have the YAML file created on the stage. I will show you that. We can check this when listing the stage. This will show us the list of the files available. Okay. So the semantic model that we will use for this demo is the one that we have just created. It is called Copilot STG products underscore v3 YAML. This is just a regular YAML file where we define different semantic elements, including the filters that we shown for the tier 1 products at the beginning of this video. So this file is available. The privileges are configured. Now the last step to get Snowflake ready for this integration is to create a procedure. And that procedure, the entire code has been taken from the Cortex Analyst quick start that's available in the Snowflake documentation. We have just made some modifications. So first of all, here, we have to specify the semantic model that we'll use. So it's actually a pointer to the file that contains our semantic model. The other modification is that in the original documentation, in the payload, there is a piece about Cortex search, which is for the unstructured data. We have removed that part from the payload because in this demo, we are just showing Cortex Analyst. The rest of the code remains the same. What this function does, it basically gets the prompt as the query in the argument, includes this prompt in the payload, and this payload is being sent to Cortex agent, and the Cortex agent redirects this to Cortex Analyst to generate the answer, and the answer is returned as the regular string, which is the return type of this procedure. Now, let's try that. And there is a piece related to formatting of the output, but this piece is taken from the Snowflake documentation. We haven't made any modifications here. So let's create this procedure. Okay. After the procedure is created, we also need to grant the privileges. Basically, usage privilege would be enough, but I'm creating all the privileges in this demo to the role analyst because our Copilot flow will execute this procedure. Let's try to run it. Okay. All right. So when the procedure is created and the grants are given, we can also test this directly in the worksheet. So I'm calling the procedure we have just created with the prompt, what are tier 1 products? Let me run this. It may take a short while, depending on the complexity. And yeah, we get back the result as the JSON in the same way as we get that when using the UI for the Cortex Analyst. So it's just wrapped in this procedure. And now this procedure will be called by Rafsan in the code of Copilot Studio Flow to get these results and show them in the Microsoft products.
Awesome. All right, I'm in Copilot Studio right now. And what we will do, we will just go ahead and click Create. And I will click New Agent. So again, If you are preparing this for production, I would suggest like putting enough information, maybe chat with Copilot to generate like description instructions. But for this demo, I'll just click skip to configure. I will call this and click create. Typically, it takes like 2 to 3 minutes to get your Copilot ready. Perfect. It's working right now. So as you can see in the overview tab, I don't have that much information, but again, like make sure that if you want to deploy this to production, then you would need to add instructions. You would need, if you want, you can add knowledge, for example, what information the users can search, etc. And then you can add tools, and we will add one tool, etc. So from here, I will go to topics and I will click create a topic from blank, and I will say this topic provides information about Cortex agents. Perfect. And I will rename this Cortex agent, and I will ask a question note, because when the user comes here, the topic will be triggered and it will ask, how can I help you? Again, like in my original agent, I actually add a comprehensive message. For example, this is how can I help you? This is list of questions. I even added a quick reply questions. This is just basically guiding the users what type of questions they can ask. And from here, so identity set multiple choice options. I will change this pre-built entity to user entire response, and that will be stored in variable. I will just make this a little bit better. Var Cortex agent. Perfect. And click save. So when you build an agent, testing is very important. At this time, we can go ahead and test to see whether our agent triggers this topic. So when the user interacts with agent, they can say Cortex agent, and this successfully triggers that specific topic. You can see this topic provides information about Cortex agents. Perfect. That means that topic works, and click edit topic. And under this, we will add an action called tool. Actually, it's called tool now. Click new agent flow. So from here, when an agent calls the flow, I will also add an input. I will say this var Cortex agent. Later, we will grab this input from that specific variable that we set inside the topic. Perfect. And then I will add an action called, you can just type Snowflake, and the action that you are looking for called submit SQL statement. And from here, so if you are doing this first time, that means that you will probably need to create a connection first. So before doing anything here, let's go to change connection reference. I have already reference, but if I click add new, this is the information I will need. And Cortex agent connection. So authentication type, keep this service principal. And the tenant, this information will basically, you will grab this information from your Azure portal. Client ID the same. Client secret will be also, you remember we saved that in our text file, and the resource URL will be your app URI. Perfect. Now I need following information from Snowflake, and Matse will provide that information for me. So you will basically need Snowflake SAS URL, Snowflake database, warehouse name, role, and schema.
All right, so let me send it to you on chat.
Mm-hmm.
I will send you just the account URL,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the parameters are very simple, so I can spell them.
Sure.
All right, so you have the account URL on chat. It's basically extracted from the Snowflake user interface. It's the organization name dash account name. Please be careful here. This parameter should be provided in exactly this way. It should not be the account identifier.
Mm.
It's just the URL in this format, which is again organization dash account name .snowflakecomputing.com. The database is called copilot underscore db. Copilot underscore db. The warehouse name is compute underscore wh.
Mm-hmm. And role.
Role is again analyst with capital letters. And the schema is called stats.
Perfect. And once you are ready, click create new. And the instance URL, again, that's gonna be same instance that Matthew provided. You're gonna paste this here and show all. We need to bring some information here as well. So we will, yeah.
Here, just use the body statement. So in this case, we need to provide SQL, and the SQL will be our call of the procedure that we created in Snowflake.
If you look at here, I'm gonna delete this and paste that here, and make sure you have these single quotes here. Do not delete them. You can find from the documentation, but don't delete them. And here we will just use this var cortex agent. Perfect. And the database
Is copilot underscore db.
and schema
Is stats
and warehouse.
compute underscore wh.
And role is analyst.
Yes.
Perfect. Once you are done, you can just save draft. And publish. We will test it. Perfect. So what we can do it from here, let's first test this. Maybe this is a bug or something it stuck here. Let's go back to the agent, and I will come back to the flow one more time, because we need to test the flow itself to make sure it works. All right, and let's test this. Of course, you will need to put a better name. Please enter your input. I can say, what are the top 3 products by revenue? Click run flow. Done. And as you can see, the flow runs successfully. If I come here, let's look at the outputs. And you can see all these outputs here: data, type, and text, total revenue. So you can see it here. Perfect. So that means it works. And what we need now, we need to send that output back to Copilot Studio, right? So click respond to agent. First, let's edit. Add an input. I will call this var Cortex outputs. And here, if you click these dynamic values, so what we need from here, we need body data. So if you can click see more, so you will see body data. Perfect. Now our flow is ready. Click save draft and publish it. Again, you will need to update the name, everything, but it's not the purpose of this demo. So I'll just go back to agent, product info, and topics, Cortex agent. And then we will bring that flow that we developed and add a tool, click new agent. Okay, this is probably the one. That's why we should have renamed it better. But yeah, you can select untitled. And it's looking for input. And we have input here called var Cortex agent, and output already generated. And please that I will add a message note. And I will use this variable here, var Cortex outputs. This is coming from our flow, and click save. Need to first turn off the agent's general knowledge. Before testing the agent, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn off the use general knowledge. You can get this from generative AI under settings, because we don't want our Gen AI use its own knowledge. We want answers only from Snowflake. Perfect. And I'm gonna go back to agent. Let me refresh this. And I will call Cortex agent. And from here, I will say, what are the top 3 products by revenue. Click enter. Perfect. Yeah, it says, I'm not sure how. So it generates the result, but what we need to do here, we need to make sure add a description, and I'm gonna grab that description from my other agent, like Cortex agent, because if you look at here, okay, I'm just gonna copy these and go back to my other agent. So that's why description is very important. In this case, we are saying that, hey, just summarize those information and make sure that you provide users with the human readable outputs. And I'm gonna click save, refresh. And here I will say Cortex agent. Perfect, it calls that topic. And I will say, what are the top 3 products by revenue? All right, that should bring data back from Snowflake. Awesome. So as you can see, the first time we put the prompt, it worked. It brought back the JSON format, but we needed work with description and instructions to make it to summarize that information and make it human readable. So here are the results. So you can see it here. And what we need now as a last step, we will go ahead and publish this. And then once it's published, we will basically deploy this agent into our Teams channel as well as M365 Copilot. So perfect, that's done. Let's go to channels. So in the channels, I'm gonna click Teams and add a channel. And make available. So I want to make this available in M365 Copilot. And so we can add this. So open this in Teams. So sometimes I notice that it takes a little bit time to sync the progress between Teams and Copilot Studio. So as you can see, so I would give like 30 minutes maybe, and then come back here. So this is the same agent we've been working. The idea is the same. You would publish that agent into your Teams or M365 Copilot. So you can see here, this is my M365 Copilot. And in the Copilot chat, if you go to open your agent, and as you can see, my agent is here, and I can interact with the agent. So this was just basically full tutorial to show you how you can connect Copilot Studio agents with Cortex Analyst to bring the structured data from Snowflake. Mate, do you have anything else?
Well, just to be more precise, not to bring only the data from Snowflake, but also the insights and the answers, because The if you look at the response generated by Snowflake, it's more conversational. So that's why we are plugging in the Cortex Analyst. And yeah, regarding the tutorial, as you can see, the biggest heaviness and the biggest effort is related to configuration of the Entra. It is not specific just to a Copilot Studio. Whenever you integrate federated authentication, it's just through the same procedure. And if you're lucky enough and in your organization you already have the Entra ID configured, then plugging Cortex Analyst to the Copilot Studio would be much easier. And yeah, regarding the tutorial, that's it. I think we'll talk about the troubleshooting and the issues that we found.
Yeah, the troubleshooting was mainly when we connected first time using like we added a agentic flow inside that topic, and we tried to connect to Cortex Analyst. But when we did that, it was giving us bad request, and we couldn't figure out because that wasn't enough information, like telling us what's wrong and what we are supposed to fix. And that's where Mathieu also helped us to identify that issue using PowerShell script. Mathieu, do you want to talk about that or maybe
Yes,
show
I
it?
want
Or
to. We will share this script along with this video,
yeah,
but just to be fully clear, the user interface and error messages from Copilot Studio are very misleading today. So we experienced that, and we also seen that many other users have this experience that whatever goes wrong, the Copilot Studio always shows bad gateway error, which is actually very misleading because in our case, it was invalid role name or invalid privilege, but the Copilot Studio has always been showing bad gateway. So this was the error message that had nothing to do with the actual problem. So if you want to resolve that, and if you come across such problems, I would recommend you to use shell script to simulate your call from the flow through the SQL API. Because when you configure the flow in the Copilot Studio, it communicates with Snowflake through the SQL API. Not JDBC, not ODBC, it's the SQL API, and it's a very specific way of calling that. So we have prepared you a script that, first of all, will get the token through your authentication authority, and then it will simulate the call through the SQL API. And from there, you will see the error message which occurs. I can show it quickly on my screen. So,
yes, go ahead, please.
uh, so this is the shell script. It's basically a curl command where you specify the request body. And request body is in a separate JSON file. And in that JSON file, you have exactly the same things that you had in the flow. So call Cortex agent procedure with the specific prompt. When I call that, when I execute this script, now everything is correct, and it will probably return me the same results as we've seen uh, in the Copilot Studio. But yeah, we can see the result in the JSON. But if it's something wrong, I can try to simulate the error. Let's say I would put invalid role here. I save it and I execute it again. Then the error message I get from calling the API directly from the script is informative. Role analyst specified is not granted to this user. So we see exactly what's the problem. Now, again, when you make a mistake in the Copilot configuration, you will just see bad gateway, and you will never know what's wrong. So we recommend you to debug to use this kind of script. The other thing that can help you to debug Entra configuration is you can check the login history directly in Snowflake. So there is SQL that you can execute from the login history, order by that by event timestamp. And if your user is connecting successfully, you will see that in the log and with the username that you have created. In our case, it was NoSQL OAuth user. That's the IP of the Azure, and we see that the client type is SQL API. And the uh, status of this login um, is success, yes. So we see that our logins are successful. If it's not, if it's something wrong with the Entra ID, in this table you will see what is the problem with the authentication. So to summarize, these two tools would be great to debug your settings.
Mathieu, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. No, this is great. Much needed, as I said, because there are a lot of organizations using Snowflake for to store their data, and end users need that data to generate insights. That can be product insights, that can be sales, etc. And today, I think this collaboration with you really helped those end users to see how they can build those agents that provide users with their real-time insights.
I'd like to talk a little bit about cost and security organization, if you
Mhm.
don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is also an important topic to ask how much does it cost? We've seen and we proved that the capabilities of the Snowflake analysts are quite powerful, but you have to consider certain costs that are associated with this. So um, apart from the basic cost, which is the compute cost of the queries that are generated, are being executed on the warehouses, there is additional cost of the Cortex Analyst usage, which may be significant. So the way Snowflake charges for usage is 6.7 credit per 100 messages, meaning 100 prompts. What's 6.7 credit? Uh, it depends on your edition. So 6.7, uh, now it depends on what's the price of the credit in your edition. So if you have enterprise edition, it's $3 and it's all per 100 messages. So if you run 100 messages on your AWS enterprise, it will give you around 3 multiplied by 6.7. It's around $20 uh, on top of the compute cost that is used to execute your queries. And that also depends on how big is that. Now, if you would like to see how much you have consumed, there is a table, Cortex Analyst Usage History, that gives you that information and that shows which user, when, and what was consumed by certain actions with the start time and the end time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so this is very clear. However, uh, may incur significant costs. The other topic I would like to discuss before the end are the security considerations, because many organizations struggle and are afraid of the moving to the cloud. But for the Snowflake, the security and the regulations are always number one priority. So first of all, and I have mentioned that at the beginning, all the queries that you execute with Cortex Analyst are going through role-based access control as any other query. You remember, we were using the role analyst, and that role had access to just one table. When you call the Cortex Agent API, it will not show you any other data that one table. It doesn't have it physically cannot return you anything from the other tables. That's one thing that's important for the security. The other one, the other one is related to the LLMs. And that's typically the biggest concern. The answers generated by the LLMs in the Cortex Analyst are done by LLMs hosted in Snowflake. So your data doesn't go outside. It doesn't call external uh, OpenAI API to return the results. This is all built in the Snowflake. So we can be sure that this is secure. So yeah, that's an important topic because when we play with some samples, we don't really care. But in the organization, in the production setup, this may be very concerning. And again, compliance with the regulations is one of the Snowflake priorities. That's why I would see this kind of flow in the enterprise solution.
No, that's awesome. And also, like, since we use Copilot Studio to bring that data into Microsoft Teams, that also leverages the Microsoft security and compliance as well. And the same thing, uh, the LLM that used there is just for generating the results. It's not designed for taking your data for training models. So you can be sure that the security layer is there. LLM is just used to generate the outputs based on your prompt plus Snowflake data. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. It's been really great. Moving forward, we are planning another session, but this time it's gonna be Cortex Search, which designed for working with unstructured data in Snowflake. And Matej, do you have any information about that before we wrap up?
So we will explain everything during the next video.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, everyone. We will share the resources in the video description with you. Please let us know if you have any questions. Maybe if you have any thoughts, comments, put that in the description, the comment section. Again, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.